listening to another episode of Cards with
Rachel
and Esther, and our special guest again. Thank you, Ashley, for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yay. And we have Theon, our sound guy, producer, the black man in charge.
That's what's up.
We're going to do a little serious podcast. We have our 3 cards. They're alcoholism, letting everyone down, and growing a pair. Which the last one might turn a little funny, but we'll see.
Right. So this one is personal for me. This is Rachel. Because I am dealing with this in my own personal life. My current husband, I'm going to say current because I don't really know where it's going. I have a pretty damn solid clue that it's not going to be current much longer. Is an alcoholic, but he does not admit that he is an alcoholic. Of course, it is my fault for everything because that is what alcoholics do. So I am taking the blame for pretty much everything, even if he put his underwear on backwards. So even if I didn't touch his underwear, somehow that is my fault. Or the seams are incorrect. I don't sew. I didn't buy those underwear. I don't know what the problem is. It's my fault. But it's gotten to the point where it's really starting to spiral and it's become nasty and we're just not good anymore. And it hasn't been good for a really, really long time. And I think I was in denial, like a lot of people who love alcoholics are, about his drinking problem. And it wasn't until probably about a year ago that I really discovered that he was an alcoholic and really put a name to it. And since that point, pretty much shit's hit the fan because I started calling him out on it and he doesn't like that. So we are pretty much finishing up where we are going with that piece, at least with him and his alcoholism, because he's moving out. And it can't come soon enough, frankly. I'm over him and his shit right now, and the kids are over it too. So we're really kind of just done. So I know Ashley has a little piece if she's willing to share about her experience with alcoholism. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. My bad.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say, I don't want to say alcoholic because he never really admitted to being an alcoholic.
They don't usually, by the way.
Yes. But when my parents got divorced, he left my mother for another woman, and that didn't work out. He lost his job. He was basically penniless. He left that one woman because she sold him false lies, like some crazy shit. She told him that she was a millionaire and that she was dying of cancer.
Oh,
and that
so he was hoping for a payday.
Didn't
work out that way.
Didn't work out. So there was a moment in time after that relationship ended where, my dad spiraled and he turned a lot of it to alcohol. He got another relationship with another woman that didn't work, and then that also turned with alcohol and depression. He doesn't really talk about it to me. He has kind of recovered. He still drinks like light beer and stuff like that. Like he doesn't really drink as much as he used to. But I know there was a point where alcohol almost destroyed his life because he got drunk one night and ended up saying some bullshit that almost got him in trouble with the law. And that's when he decided that he had a problem and he had
that was his bottom.
Yeah. And he had to make a choice. And also he kind of also in this bottom also realized that he ruined the relationship with his kids. So
it typically is what happens. I'm afraid for my husband. I don't know what his bottom is going to be. He's losing his family, which is the one thing that he's really always cared about, but I don't think that that's going to be his bottom. I see a big spiral coming. I'm worried about his health and his safety. He just keeps drinking more and more. I see a DUI at the very minimum in his future. I'm hoping he can see that losing his family is gonna maybe make him hit his bottom, but in all honesty, I don't think it is. He just doesn't see it, and right now he's able to put everything on me, and I'm an easy scapegoat for him because I'm not gonna put up with it anymore, which, you know, obviously falls under the growing a pair. We'll get to that in a minute, but right now he really is just spiraling, and it's just so toxic for our children, and they're scared, and, you know, it's my job as their mother to protect them, and I'm upset with myself for not doing more when I should have, but I want it. I think so many wives of alcoholics struggle with this piece too. You want to keep your family together, and then you have those bright moments where, like, okay, we can do this, and you can figure it out, and you try to control the pieces, and at the end of the day, you can't control those, and you do, and if you do, you can only do it for so long, and it's at a sacrifice to yourself and your family, and sometimes you just have to let people go, and you have to let them figure it out or self-destruct, and it's hard, and I think realistically this is probably one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, because it doesn't just affect me, it affects my kids too. But I know that them living in this house with him and seeing what's happening is far worse, and I can't pretend anymore. I can't pretend like it doesn't exist. I can't pretend that, you know, when he gets drunk that sometimes the abuse doesn't happen anymore. I can't pretend any of those pieces. They hear it, they've seen it now, and it happens, and it's not okay anymore, and it's just spiraling. So that comes to the piece of letting everyone down. You know, when you are an alcoholic, I don't even think you register just how much you are letting everyone down. Like, I know when I got married, this was not what I had in mind. Like, I wasn't like, hell yes, I cannot wait to self-destruct in 14 flipping years. This is gonna be amazing. Like, this is just, I can't wait to put my kids through all this trauma. Like, it's just gonna be absolutely awesome. Like, we're just all gonna have a bunch of character and be so resilient after this. Nobody says that shit. But it is what it is. And we are gonna be stronger after it, but it is gonna be a tough road. And I think the worst part is that I don't know if it's going to be as tough for him as it is for the kids and I, because we're not alcoholics. So we see it for what it is. And it's hard to explain to kids when you look at someone who doesn't look sick that they have a disease. So they don't understand that he's going to let them down. He's going to disappoint them. He will choose that alcohol over him, over both or all of them. And, you know, I just have to be there to pick up the pieces. And that is the piece I think that I get most pissed off about, because if I could, I would honestly, like, whip the shit out of them. But, you know, that's not healthy either. But it would feel good. It would feel really good, especially some days. But you can't do that. And so I'm just left trying to explain these things to my children, who are 13, 11, and 9. And some, I think they get some of it, but I don't know how much they get. But I find that this approach is the best approach, I think, for them. But at the same token, I don't want to turn them against their dad. So I'm really struggling with that fence. And I feel like, personally, letting everyone down, I let them down. I made a bad choice, and I stuck with that choice. And I think I knew from early on that he had a problem, and I just wanted to be in denial because of my own family trauma. So that's been something that I've had to struggle with too, and I will always have that guilt over, son of a bitch, if I would have just left the first time, if I would have left, you know, after this, or why wasn't I brave enough? Why wasn't I strong enough then? Why didn't I grow a pair? Why now? And I don't know if I have all the answers for that, but I think a lot of it's timing, and a lot of it is just growth. And I know I grew a pair now, and we're not going back. So when he's moved out, which, praise Jesus, hopefully will be sooner rather than later, we're not going back to that. it's going to take a lot of, it's going to take a full 180 for us to even consider it. But I'm mostly sad. I'm sad for them. I'm sad for me. I'm sad for what could have been. So, I don't know what's going to happen. But as I take a sip of my wine, because I am not an alcoholic, sorry, for those of us who enjoy that piece, it is just, I don't know, there is a piece. But I will say this. Today, I went to my first al-anon meeting, and people had encouraged me for years to go, and I was afraid. I was afraid to go into an al-anon meeting because I didn't know what to expect, and I was afraid to go because I thought that the minute I went in there that, like, my marriage would be over. So I went when basically my marriage is almost over, and I'll be honest, if you're on the fence and you're listening, please go. Do yourself a favor. I went in there and I saw happy people. And they were happy people in the same type of situation like I'm in, or one maybe similar, who have an alcoholic parent or an alcoholic child or someone in their life as an alcoholic, but they had found a way to deal with the alcoholic in their life and find their own happiness. It wasn't what I thought it was, and I will be going back. And I hope to go back a bunch of times. And when my kids get old enough, I'd like to put them in Alateen. It really did change my life in that moment. People shared their personal stories, and I found myself being like, oh my God, that's yes, yes, yes. Like, you don't understand, unless you have that life, what it's actually like. And so to be in a room full of people who get that, it's an instant, camaraderie. And so that was a big piece, and that, has really helped in the piece of like confirming. Before I came here and actually I'm recording this, I stood and listened to him, and I did the listen and learn, and I just realized that now more than ever, I had to grow an even bigger pair because I can't save him. And I think, unfortunately, he has not hit his bottom. And I'm going to look at our impending divorce as temporary right now. I'm hoping that he hits a bottom, but without so much self-destruction to himself or anyone else. And I hope that maybe someday we could find our way back to each other because our family is important. But if not, we're going to be okay. So, and I'm glad that I've got Al-Anon in my life now. And then I'm going to cry because that's what type of emotional little psycho I am. So I'm going to pass the mic to someone else.
Well, I mean, just like I've come from like I'm a child of divorce. Like my mom had 3 kids, and my dad's main addiction was the fact that he needed constant relationship in his life. So he, had the 3 relationships, and the relationship he's in right now, I credit to a lot of his change. Like he's become a whole different man, and we've become a lot closer. But I mean, I really understand like the feeling of a father just kind of giving up, because that's what my dad did. My dad just kind of, after that second marriage fell to shit, he just kind of stopped paying the child support, moved to Illinois, didn't see him a lot. His relationships with the people he were in became more important than his kids. And it's heartbreaking as a child. It really defines about who you're going to be, because you've never kind of felt that kind of betrayal before.
Right.
And it's the first betrayal you ever really feel, and he just shapes a little bit of you, and it's not right. It's not right for any child to go through that. And I have forgiven him, and we've moved on, but it will always be with me. It's always going to be something that I deal with. And I think the way you're talking to your kids and being so open is something I wish I had, because my mom, and I love my mom to death. She's a strong woman. She took us through, she was given a shit stack of cards, and she took us through it, and you would never have guessed how much of a financial stress she was in, how little she had. You would never guess. But at the same time, I was so confused. Mm-hmm. I was so lost. Like, her emotions were bottled up, so she would just have outbursts. So I feel like that open communication, that open communication and that truthfulness of, hey, this might happen and it's okay and I'm here for you, right, does so much for the kid. I wish I had that, because when it's not there, just, you bottle it up and it boils over one day, and it's not pretty when it boils over.
So what Ashley's talking about is I've actually sat my kids down and I've told them that although their father does not admit that he is an alcoholic, he is an alcoholic. And what that means is that he has a disease, and it affects the way he thinks and the way he behaves, and that there may be times where he will do things that don't make sense to them. And, you know, when he moves out, that he's supposed to take them, you know, every other weekend, but there may come a time where he doesn't show up, and I want them to know that, you know, it doesn't mean that he doesn't love them. It just may mean that he's in the grips of alcoholism. And so I've really tried to be honest with my kids and have these conversations, because I want them to know that it's not personal, that he does love them, but he's an alcoholic. And until he gets help and decides that he wants to get help and makes that choice for himself, there's not a whole lot they can do. And my son asked me, he said, well, why doesn't he just quit? And I said, you know, it's because he actually can't. He has to make that decision. I said, so please don't ever think that if you love him enough, he'll quit, because it doesn't matter. This is not something you can love out of him. If you think he loves you enough, he'll quit. That's not how this works either, unfortunately. I wish it was, because I've spent years and years trying to love it and control it out of them, and shelter the kids from it, but it doesn't work that way. So, you know, I just have really tried to be honest with my children about what this looks like, what it's gonna look like. And those are hard conversations. I mean, I've had to sit my kids down and say, when your dad looks this way, these are his tells when he's had way too much to drink. You know, you're gonna have to pick up the phone and call me. You can never get in the car with him after he's had this much to drink. You know, sometimes he doesn't drink from a beer bottle. So you'll have to learn to look for these things, especially when I'm not going to be around and you're visiting him. Like, these are conversations that I never, ever thought that I would have to have with my children, especially at these ages. So these are not things that I wanted them to be exposed to, but I feel like I would do them a disservice if I didn't know. We have had instances where I didn't realize that he had drank so much, because he is an alcoholic, and he has driven in the car with my children, our children, drunk. And I didn't realize it until later. And that is scary as hell. And so, you know, then you tighten that grip of control, and then everything just loses. It's a vicious cycle. And we're just done. I've grown a pair and I'm done. And, you know, he doesn't like that piece. So obviously this is why we're at, why we're there. So, but the kids are learning, I think, and my husband happens to be in the military, so when he was gone, our home was a very different place. And while they're sad that he's no longer going to be living with us day to day, I know for a fact my two older ones are actually very excited about the peace that our home is going to have. It's a different feeling they are, afraid of his behaviors because it's unpredictable, because we don't know where he's at, and because he's an alcoholic, it's hard to read. So, they're happy for that piece. And, I just keep trying to reassure them that I'm here for you. Like, I am reliable. I'm your mom. My job is to keep you safe. Like, you can ask me any questions. I'll do the best I can to answer them. Like, your dad still loves you. We both still love you. We'll do this together. So, and I was like, and if he is unable to do it, then I'll still be here. And we're going to have a happy life regardless. Like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be rough for a little bit, but we will get through it together. So, and today I came home, and for the first time in like 6 years, I felt like this peace and release. And I was just so happy for the first time. And even my kids were like, Mom, you look so happy. And I was like, it's because I am. They were like, but you were so sad yesterday. And I said, well, yeah, I'll probably have days like that. I said, but today I am just so happy. And I am, because I know that soon, like, I'll be able to provide my kids with all of the things that I've wanted to give them, like the peace and the tranquility in our home. And and I can let go of that control, and I don't have to worry about him anymore. And I wish, like I said, I would have gone to al-anon so much earlier so I could have learned those tools. But I'm going to keep going so I can learn them for my kids and I. Thanks, Ashley. It makes me feel really good, by the way, that you said that I'm doing the right thing as a kid of an alcoholic. I, too, by the way, am a kid of an alcoholic. My biological father is an alcoholic. And my mom kind of talked to us about it, but I didn't really know too much. So I get a lot of those same pieces. So I think that's probably why I decided to say, we're just going to give them all of the truth as much as we can and make it age appropriate. I just am trying really, really hard to make sure that it comes across as not slandering, because I don't want to slander their dad. And I know... And I said that to him today. I said, listen, I'm not talking bad about your dad. I'm just telling you what this disease is like. And I said, and I don't care. I hope your dad doesn't talk bad about me, but I don't know. I said, sometimes the disease is funny like that. I said, but I'm not going to do those things. I was like, so you just need to know that piece. So I'm like really just going to take the high road as much as I can. At least with them, I will. Probably to other people, I might be like, but I'm going to try. Yeah. I am going to have moments, because I do, like I said, he blames me in his alcoholism for everything that's wrong in his life. So I know that there are going to be moments where I'm just going to lose my mind. So I'm going to try my best to not. On a side note, I punched a couch this weekend. Here's what we learned. I punched really hard. I got a boxer's fracture. I didn't need a cast, thank God, because I missed all the soft spots. So I punched really hard, but I have really bad aim. So that's what we learned. So I'm going to take up angry coloring as my coping mechanism instead of punching couches. Just saying.
That's a good thing.
Right? So we learned something. We learned a lot of things.
What did we learn today?
We learned that... Well, we didn't really talk about growing a pair. Oh, geez. I almost knocked stuff over.
I want to talk about that story. I told you about that girl and that guy about growing a pair.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, over the past 18 months, have really grown a pair. I just decided at some point that I just was worth more, and my kids deserved more. And that's when I said no more. I started calling him out on his crap. He didn't like that. And... well, here we are. And I'm going to continue to grow big, huge pairs. And I think it's great, especially when women grow a pair after they've been in a situation similar to mine or even worse.
You're going to put them balls on the table.
I'm going to slap them balls on the table. I sure am.
Oh, man.
Tell me about your growing a pair.
I don't know if I want to talk about that story because
okay.
that's too soon and it's somebody else's story.
Oh, okay. Don't share that one then.
But I guess growing a pair, like with the whole thing about like coming from the divorce and kids perspective, I think my growing a pair from that was just like for a long time, you know, I was the one who had to be strong because my sister and brother were older than me, and they were like, fuck this, I'm not going over there. And I just think I had to realize I took it in a lot and I thought it was my fault.
Yep.
You know, that trope of kids always thinking it's their fault, their parents got divorced. That was me.
Well, I've been sure to tell my children, and I reassure them all the time, I say, you realize none of this is your fault. That sometimes, you know, people get married, and I've used the plant analogy. I said marriage is like a plant. You know, it needs like water, which is like affection, sunlight, which is attention, and then love. And both people have to give it those things, you know, continuously. And if one person is just doing it, the marriage plant will not survive. It just doesn't do well. And if, you know, nobody is really doing anything to any one of those three things, or if one of those pieces is missing, it can start to die. And sometimes it gets so far gone that no matter how much, you know, water, sunshine, and love you give it, it's just not enough. But it doesn't, and I like just tell them, because, you know, I've got a little one, so she didn't quite get when I was trying to explain it, so then I had to use a plant thing. But so I just, you know, I'm like, and sometimes that's what happens, but that doesn't mean that, you know, mom and dad don't love you guys, and this is not your fault, you know. So I mean, we've had to kind of go back and forth on there about that, because I need them to understand that, like, it's not necessarily his alcoholism that has led to our divorce. Is it a large part of it? I'd have to say yeah. I mean, I in my personal opinion, I'm sure he's going to argue completely different. He would say it's because of the way I behaved. And I probably would have to say there's probably a big truth in that. I tried to control his alcoholism for a long time, so I didn't really allow him to be the person I guess he is. And I thought I was doing the right thing to protect my family. And I don't know if I would do it any differently. I don't know. I can't go back in time. I don't know if the trajectory would be any different. I can't tell you that. So it is what it is. I just think that there wasn't enough love, water, and sunshine put in by either one of us continuously throughout our marriage, and it just hasn't worked. And I think alcoholism played a big role in it. It does break up families, especially when someone is in denial and doesn't want to get help. I mean, what do? People can only cope for so long at a self-sacrifice before they grow up here. Esther, you got anything on this one?
Yeah, because the Heartless clan is pretty alcoholic. Well, I wouldn't say alcohol. Well, I mean, we like to drink a lot, but there's been a couple of instances in our family where we've had some issues, one dealing with like a funeral and another one dealing with Thanksgiving. But and a couple of people, one person getting slapped, and another like just an all-out brawl because it was just two burly men going at it. But I don't know. We're not a family that really talks to each other about things like that. We just kind of let things blow over, and then when we all get drunk again, that's when it comes out. Which is not a great way to deal with it. Definitely not. Would not recommend. Definitely didn't grow up with it because my mom barely ever drinks, and my mom was a single parent. And even with living with my grandparents, my grandpa drank a lot, but it was like mostly beer. And I was too young to really hear if he was irate or anything like that. I would just watch the Chucky TV show or the Freddy Krueger TV show. If you guys remember that. Yeah, that was my childhood.
I can't.
So I don't know. I don't have much to put onto it, and that's why I was pretty quiet. And that's how it should go. If you don't have anything to really put into something, like, you should just be quiet and listen
And learn.
And that's when you grow. But unfortunately, AA doesn't have like a national hotline that I found.
Al-anon. That's what we need.
Oh, Al-anon. But AA.org is definitely a website, and they can get you hooked up. If you are an alcoholic, they can get you hooked up with someone.
And then if you're...
Oh, and then if you are a spouse or a family member dealing with it, it's al-anon.org. And they will help you with get you paired into a group that will help just support you in what you're going through. And sometimes you need that. You need a support group of exactly what you're going through. Just like this, like, I didn't say anything because I personally haven't been affected with it all my life. Like, I don't want to be like one of those people that are like, oh, I'm so sorry, I know what you're going through. No, the fuck you don't. Like, why would you say stupid shit like that? If you don't know it, then you don't know it. Like, just sit back, listen, learn, like, eat it, like, digest it, and then, like, just deal with it in your own. Like, you should never tell someone that you know what they're going through if you never do, especially on an issue like that. But I think that's our podcast. Thank you for listening. We got deliciously serious, but sometimes it needs to be serious. Some things needs to be talked about. Thank you for listening.
Thanks. Bye.